Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vasudeva
Shri Radhe Govind Bhagwan ki
Hare
Krishna.
So I think we're done with 33 now, right?
Yeah, I think we just completed the 33.
So we can read 33, the English, and then we can go to 34 because 34 refers itself back to 33. Actually, Gajendraji, why don't you just chant the Sanskrit and the English of 33?
Okay.
And then we'll go to 34.
All right, let's start that. Ahamevas samevagrinanyada yat sadasat param pankshadham yadetacche yo avashishya shetaso ashyamaham. Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. What is the next? Riteartham yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tadvidhyadatmano mayam yatha bhaso yatha tamah. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. No, it is as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada's purport, and it's long. We'll get a couple paragraphs done this week. In previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration, and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. It's your turn.
Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya or Mahamaya. Both the Mayas also have connection with the Lord because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false, but illusory.
Nesh Prabhu? We can't hear you, Prabhu. Are you on mute? We still can't hear you. Is it?
Need to turn on the microphone.
Something's wrong with his mic.
Okay, while Babuji is connecting with Dr. Parag.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, you can hear him now. So you may have to mute the other one.
We already moved.
Okay. Parag, do you want to read while Mahesh Prabhu is looking at it?
I think somebody should go for like having some voice problem.
Misconceiving one thing for another is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope, as it exists in the front of the illusioned person, is not at all false, but the acceptance is illusory. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false.
Yeah, Mahesh Prabhu, are you good now?
Your turn.
Okay. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being produced out of my energy is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless, or that the Supreme Lord is formless, is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.12, it was said by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna himself and even the Lord had all existed before they were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra.
Deva?
And they would continue to be individual personalities in the future also, even after the annihilation of the present body and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual personalities, and the personal feature of both the Lord and the living being are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusionary energy, the reflection of the light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of Lord, be removed.
Nishant?
In the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor is that of the moon. The real source of light is the Brahma Jyot, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord, and the same light is reflected in varieties of light. The light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire, or the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord.
Okay, so let's stop there and go back to the verse itself.
The first one, other verse, yeah.
Yeah, the very verse itself, and take a look at this verse.
You can read it.
O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. What do we take just from the verse? What's being said? First sentence, what's being said?
anything not connected to Krishna has no value.
Right. It may look real. It may look important. It may look permanent. But if it has no connection with Krishna, it really has no reality, no permanent reality. Prabhupada kind of clarifies that. He says that it's not false, it's just temporary, it's illusory. Look at the second sentence. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection that appears to be in darkness. So what's that energy that's the illusory energy? Everybody knows this answer.
Mahamaya.
Maya.
Mahamaya.
Mahamaya. Yes, exactly. That's the best answer. It's Mahamaya. So with that said, let's move to the first paragraph of the purport, and I'll ask, are there any questions about this? Any thoughts? Anybody have something that jumps out at them they want to ask about?
Or talk about.
Or talk about?
No, not yet.
Prabhuji, could you please quickly tell the difference of Maya and Mahamaya?
Well, that we'll get to for sure, but we'll get there. But let's see if there's a couple other topics before we get there. That's coming.
It's coming. It's in the same paragraph.
It's in the same paragraph. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Right now, it looks like Gajendraji has just highlighted something. Gajendra?
Yeah, like there's nothing which can exist without the Lord, right? So even the illusory energy cannot exist without the God.
Yes, and actually, it's sort of like this. We were reading this today, and we were sitting in the sun, and there are some clouds, and these clouds only exist because of the sun's energy. The cloud looks like it has some kind of reality, but compared to the sun, I mean, we're using this is a material example. The sun is something that's sustained for millions and millions and billions of years, and the clouds come and go. But the clouds are produced of the sun's energy. The sun heats up the water, and the water then makes a cloud. So those clouds, they can't exist without. Those clouds have some energy, some powers. They can rain or cause some weather changes, but that's all dependent upon the sun. So whatever we see in this world, some temporary changes, they're more, the whole world's more permanent than a cloud in a way, not really, but in a way. It's all dependent on Krishna. Krishna's energy is behind everything. And if we don't see that, then we're getting to the Mahamaya soon.
It's still from Krishna, but it just.
Yeah, still from Krishna. There's nothing that's not from Krishna.
But everything that exists is Krishna or his energies. There's nothing else. There's absolutely nothing else. So everything that is in existence is part of the energy of the Supreme Lord. Everything. So anything that we consider to be separate, that is illusion. Because it's impossible. There's nothing separate from the energy of the Lord.
It's our interpretation, which I guess can change the perspective. It's like a coin with two sides. It's the same coin, but has two sides, heads and tail.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, it seems every activity, anything in this world has two sides. You can view it in relation with Krishna and the Yog Maya, or you can view it on the other side, which is plain and simple Maya. So it seems maybe that is there's two sides of the coin, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, the energy is there. The energy, whether it's Yoga Maya or Mahamaya, is the energy of the Lord. But how we see it as independent, that's called Mahamaya. And so, Jivaji, this is part of the answer to your question. Of the two energies, both of them are part of the Supreme Lord, because everything is part of the Supreme Lord. But the energy that pretends that is separate from the Lord, that's called Mahamaya. And that energy which is part of the Supreme Lord, and we see it as part of the Supreme Lord, that's called Yoga Maya. That's the difference.
And we see when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, pastimes of Krishna, that everyone in Vrindavan, they're all completely immersed in the play of Yogamaya. That's all, in a sense. It's a transcendental play, and in a sense, it's everyone is completely in illusion. In a sense, I mean, they're in illusion in one sense. They can't understand that Krishna is God. That's their illusion. Their illusion, it's a reverse illusion. We can't figure out that there is God because we want to forget. And because they want to serve Krishna, they can't understand that Krishna is God. Mother Yashoda does not want to think of Krishna as God. How can she be mother to God? I mean, she kind of in the background really knows, but it's way back there. So
Thank you.
that's Yogamaya. That's the play of Krishna in the spiritual world. And in the material world, we've got the other kind of Maya, Mahamaya, and sometimes called Daiva Maya because it's Durga, it's Devi, it's Devi, you know, and Devi is she's protecting, well, she's keeping us here and she's protecting Krishna from having unauthorized intruders into his pastimes.
Shiva was asking a question.
Yes, Shiva, you were asked a question.
No, I was just thanking you for the explanation.
And you know, before we leave this paragraph, one thing popped up in my mind that was very when we read this. It talks about the cosmic manifestation. It goes through an appearance, sustenance, growth, interactions of different energies, its deterioration and its disappearance. These are the same stages of every living entity. We're born, we grow, we are sustained, we grow, we produce some byproducts, we maintain for a while, then we fall apart, and then we die. So the cosmic manifestation also, same thing. It goes through life cycle. In the material world, everybody's got we've all got a parrot, you know, those things in the supermarket, you know, it says used by, or, you know, it's rotten after this date, or we've got what's called an expiration date printed on our life. So, you know, whatever that expiration date is, that's it. So any other questions? Madhavaji, do you have anything? You're silent today, and I know you have something to say.
No, I think it's, I was thinking one example as when you were giving the cloud, that actually when we look in mirror, or even when there is no sun, we don't see our shadow. So to exist, my shadow to exist, I must be there. Otherwise, it cannot form my shadow. But that's so it is there, but it disappears as if there's no sun, because which I say the relevance of God. Then there will be no shadow. If there's no sun, I am there, but there will be no shadow. You see what I'm saying?
I think I know what you're saying. If we don't understand that there's God, then we really can't even see ourselves.
Yeah, so that's what something like I'm trying to say.
I think, yeah, Prabhuji is saying is that, so like, as if we are not there, how can we see our shadow, right? But we see the shadow, but that's illusory, right? But then you are existing, that's why you see that.
Yes.
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 That's why the Lord Krishna is there, that's why sun is there, and that's why we are there. Otherwise, how will we be there? And that's why the Maya is there.
And I think Prabhupada mentions, does he mention in the first paragraph? He will in the second. He wants everybody to understand that that Krishna has a form and we have a form, and we have to understand that if you think that everything is formless, that is illusion. That's part of the illusion. I think it's the second paragraph.
It's still in the first paragraph, Gajendra Prabhu, if you want to bring it back.
Yeah, go back to the first paragraph.
A couple of sentences that are very, very important. First of all, the word Maya means, one of the meanings of Maya is that which is not. So Mahamaya is the great illusion, that which is not real. Because nothing can exist without the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord. Therefore, the right conclusion, knowing and understanding this, that nothing can exist without the Lord, the right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with Him is called Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. So that's a very, very important point that Srila Prabhupada is making. Remember that there is a verse, and the verse is kind of elaborated into all these paragraphs. There are lots of paragraphs here on the purport, just to make that point really, really clear, that nothing can exist without the Lord. And because nothing can exist without the Lord, everything is meant to be of service to Him. And how we live our lives, we can live our lives separate, or we can live our lives seeking this union by offering everything to the Lord, to making every act a sacred act, a sacrifice, a sacred activity, and our lives become sacred. So that's the conclusion. Very simple.
The meaning of life. Most people, they're looking for the meaning of life in some sort of achievement they do in this life. The real meaning of life is what Rudrani is saying, is being able to understand who we really are and making ourselves conscious servants of the Lord.
And not only conscious servants, but loving.
Yeah.
Loving servants, full of consciousness, highly developed consciousness, and with full cultivation of the heart.
We can imagine ourselves as a fish in water.
Well, that's one of Prabhupada's favorite analogies. Yes. The soul in the material world is like a fish out of water. If you give the fish a nice car, a girlfriend, a house, an iPhone, you can give him all sorts of stuff, but he's choking because he's not in his environment. So the soul is choking in the material world in want of a relationship with God. And all these other things, they're ultimately not going to satisfy the soul.
Impossible.
They may satisfy our body, and as to the degree we identify with our body will be Bhaktivinoda Thakur spoke about, in the material world, the world is all about happiness and sorrow. You're seeking happiness and running away from sorrow. That's it. Try to find things that make you happy, like nice food or good sex or, money or whatever. And then sorrow is things like, your baseball team loses, or maybe you lose money in the stock market, or your girlfriend goes, or whatever. Happiness and sorrow. Spiritual life is about bliss. And bliss is ecstatic, a relationship of love with Krishna. And that has nothing to do with running away from sorrow and running towards so-called happiness.
And that relationship is the natural propensity of the soul. That's our natural propensity. If we don't have this propensity awakened, still there. And only when we realize that propensity, we put it into practice, are we completely realized at that point.
Second paragraph. Gajendra, you were going to underline something.
It was the formless, I think, is what we are talking about. Right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, there we are. Yeah, the conception that the living entity is formless, or that the supreme this illusion is propagated by those souls who don't want to surrender to Krishna. They don't want anybody to. They care, because we are by nature envious of the Supreme Lord. We have turned ourselves away from the Lord, but we may, through yoga, come to conclusions about the fact that we're not this body, we're spirit, we're not of the material world. So then we cannot admit there's God, so that we have to say everything's formless, or God's formless. Any questions? Otherwise, I'll just talk too much.
Questions or
Hare
comments?
Krishna.
Let me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very good.
Personal feature of the Lord and the living entities are never abolished.
And you know, Prabhupada refers to this verse in Bhagavad Gita. Can you click on that,
212.
Gajendra? 212. Natvevaham jatunasam.
Can you click on the verse,
Yeah.
on the number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Natwam ne me janadipa nachaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayamata param. Krishna tells Arjuna, you know, Arjuna's looking at the battle, although never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. That means that the souls have always existed along with Krishna. Individually. But they didn't come into being anytime. I mean, it's not like, you know, you didn't exist and then you were born and now you'll exist. No, you've always existed. We've always existed as individual souls, and we're always going to exist.
And the reason for that is because God is ever existing. There was never a beginning or an end. Since we're part of the Supreme, obviously we don't have a beginning or an end. Our material bodies do have a beginning and an end, but we don't, because we're part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who has no beginning and no end, ever existing. So we are also like that.
Thus, death is totally unnatural.
It has a quotation of this Nitya Nam Chetanas Chetana.
Oh, yeah. Very important verse. Actually, you can look at that. That's very important. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Govardhani. Krishna is the eternal, and he's the sentient. You know, living entities are eternal because Krishna is eternal, and living entities have consciousness because Krishna has consciousness. Otherwise, nothing exists. Krishna is the source of everything. Good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
So Prabhuji, at a soul level, we all are same, right?
We are not the same. Each one is unique, but we're all spiritual beings, and each one has its own likes and dislikes, propensities, qualities, nature. So
at the soul level, at the level of soul, because soul is a part and parcel of super soul, so it should be same. Why there should be difference in your soul and my soul?
Well, you're right on one level, but Rudrani's right on another level. You and I, as human beings, are the same too. We both have livers, we both have hearts, we both have colons and brains and eyeballs and everything. You know, but you know what? You can't trade yours for mine. I can't trade yours for yours. They're different. You got a different. You may have a bad kidney, and I may have a bad knee, or you may be, you know, have good hearing and I have bad hearing. So we're all the same, but guess what? We're all a little different. So as soul, you know, everybody's unique, and we have a unique relationship with Krishna.
And the interesting thing is that there are endless living entities, and therefore, because each one is different, there are endless ways of interacting with the Supreme Lord.
But by that reasoning, then soul should have multiple layers, and one of the layer might be different qualitatively. Right.
The quality is the same. It's the quantity that is different.
Quantity, correct.
Yes, yeah. The quality is the same. We're spiritual beings. But in quantity, God is supremely the source of everything, and we're just minute particles. And that's why we tend to become confused. And that's why we tend to separate ourselves from the Supreme Lord. Because, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The number of souls are constant in the world, though. In the whole.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
I think so.
The number of souls are constant in the sense that there's never been any more or less. They're always the same. They're endless.
Yeah.
But then souls are getting liberated too, right? Like
souls may be getting liberated, but there's endless number of souls. They cannot be counted.
And also the word liberation, it has various meanings. It has several meanings.
Liberated means you are getting connection to the Godhead, but you still exist as a soul. And
You
can
always
change
exist.
Yeah.
form.
There's not a time when you or I did not exist. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita.
Right. We just saw
But
that.
he doesn't say you and I are the
It
same.
is like a passing of a train. You don't know where the beginning is, where the end is. Like you just see the picture where the train is passing.
Yeah.
Right. So your beginning is not seen, your end is
You
not
can't see
seen,
the
but
beginning,
just
yeah.
your
You can
vision
walk
is
the train
just
in.
in the middle.
I think the only thing is based on karma or based on the liberation or whatever, the soul is having a different form. I mean, the form in the sense has a different attachment, right? So like, for example, right now we have a human form, right? And then based on that karma, maybe you get into that 8.4 million cycles and then you have a different material form. Or if you get liberated, then also you have a spiritual form. So I think answer to what Shivanand Prabhuji is saying is essentially the soul, the quality is the same, but every soul is different. So even though
Yes,
Exactly.
yes, exactly.
different.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We're all
that was
spirit-
my point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we can't count
That's
how many
correct.
there are because
They're
it's an unlimited
endless,
number.
unlimited.
Yeah, but
It's
it's constant, Prabhuji, right?
There
Not-
is that Swarupya Mukti and then Sayujya Mukti and all that stuff. Can you elaborate on that, Prabhuji?
well, we have different, Sayuja Mukti, which is the impersonal liberation, is totally, we couldn't care less about that. Because that idea is that one wants to enter into it. This gets a little complicated, so let's try
No,
to
not
keep
really.
it simple.
I can
That Sayuja Mukti is that mukti or liberation where a person through the process of yoga understands one's eternal nature, but only to the point of the sat of eternality. And therefore, not having anything more than that, enters into the non-differentiated Brahman. And that way, there's absolutely no variegatedness. Is like, drop of, it's like homogenized milk. It's just all merged, and there's no qualities. That is not a stable liberation, because the soul is by nature from forever, not even the beginning, forever, has in nature, like Krishna, has desires and has likes and dislikes. It has the nature is that activity. So if you're in that situation in the Brahma Jyoti for trillions of years, and there's a one speck of like, activity, then because there's no understanding of spiritual world above, and that's a relative term, a spiritual world, then one immediately has to enter into the material world and engage in activities again. So Sayuja Mukti, then there's 4 other types of Mukti.
Right.
Sharshti, which is to have the opulence of the Lord. Swarupya is to have the bodily features of the Lord. Salokya is to live in the Lord's place. Samipya is to, what? No, that's Samipya is
with like you are there with Lord in the same planet, like that, right?
Yeah,
and
but
that's Vaikuntha.
This is Vaikuntha. This is not Vrindavan. So there are different kinds of there are different kinds of liberation.
Or liberation, right?
One of the definitions of liberation is to understand that we are not matter. So once we are realized that we are, I'm talking about realizing, not just hearing about it and thinking, oh, that's interesting, but actually realizing that we're not matter, that pure spirit. That is the liberation that Srila Prabhupada is talking about, from which point, from this point, we start to live a life that is dedicated to the service of the Supreme Lord. Understanding that everything that is matter is completely alien, it has no value whatsoever. And we don't want to live in this kind of world. We want to live in a world of real value and real meaning, which is in our relationship with the Supreme Lord. But that's for souls who are very, very evolved.
There's if there's no other questions, I'd like to read the very end of this paragraph, beginning with the real source of light, because this is a really beautiful section here. the real source of light, the end of the paragraph, this is the paragraph we're on. The real source of light is the Brahma Jyoti, which diffuses the light from the transcendental body of the Lord. So the Brahma Jyoti, remember, is the place where the person's in Sayuja Mukti, the lowest level of realization.
Right, yeah.
So the real source of light is the Brahma Jyoti, which diffuses the light from the transcendental body of the Lord. It's the light of Krishna's body. And the same light is reflected in varieties of light. So what do we, in this material world, it's dark actually, except why? The light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire, and the light of electricity.
Reflected.
These are all reflected lights. They're derivative light. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also an illusion. It's like a derivative. And the false claim of I am the Supreme is the last illusory snare of Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. We have this derivative identity. Like these light is derivative. The sun's light is not, it's a material manifestation of real light. So in the same way, our consciousness and our lives here are like, a material reflection of real life. And the final Maya is when we want to claim that somehow or other I'm the Supreme. And then that way we enter into the energy of the Supreme with this false idea.
Which is totally, totally preposterous and absurd.
And some schools of Vaishnavism won't even accept that even exists. We'll philosophically, Prabhupada will say it does exist, but don't do it.
Okay, let's see, there's a temporary.
Any other questions, comments? This is
So
deep stuff.
If we could go back to the verse and look at the verse again after the discussion, see if it makes sense how the discussion is pointing to anything that appears to be of any value, unless it is related to me, has no reality. It's just like a wisp of the wind, something that floats up in the air and dissolves. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness, and that's Maya. That's to be completely confused, totally bewildered by something that is not real. And so we as actors perform certain kind of roles on the stage of life, and we identify ourselves with the role, and we're not that person. Napoleon or Donald Trump or somebody, but we're none of these people. We're the soul. We're pure exist. We are pure souls, and we can only be satisfied when we lose this identification with that which is not us.
Was this?
And that's called the process of self-realization, to become self-realized.
Has this been a total confusion for everybody, or a little bit helpful? I mean, this section of the Bhagavatam is really deep. When you get back to we get back to Bhagavad Gita, it's going to feel really like
wow.
easy. You can get through this, you can get through anything.
But then, like I was saying before some of you even connected, we were talking to Sonali and Parag Prabhu, and said, once we see these verses, which are the four most important at the core of the Bhagavatam, we will see the Bhagavad Gita with such clarity. It'll be so evident,
It's post-graduation, Mataji. That's why they say, right? Bhagavad Gita is undergrad, getting graduation, and then Bhagavatam is post-graduation.
Well, this has been a really, really nice evening, and thanks to Zoom, we can do it from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, we wanted to see the beach, Prabhuji, behind your window.
It's dark now.
It's dark now.
Actually, this beach, there's hardly anyone at the beach. When we go there,
maybe
it's empty. It's empty.
Of course, that's at 7:30 in the morning to chant japa. So.
Maybe there's a reflection in the darkness, reflection of water.
Right now, it is just darkness, yes.
All right, so I think we'll hear the Kirtan, Prabhuji, for 8 to 9 minutes.
Yes,
that'd be nice.
Please.
And then, So
Thank you, Rajendra Prabhu.
Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for everyone coming and sharing, and it's been always nice to be together.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
See you next Friday.
Next Friday. Have a good
Have
weekend.
a wonderful week.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Mataji.
Glories to Prabhupada.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.